You gave them everything: your time, your strength, your sleep, your dreams. You watched over their fevers, stayed up through their tears, sacrificed so they could become something more. And now, you sit by the window, you watch your phone, you listen for a voice that doesn't call, you hope for a visit that never comes. And maybe the hardest part isn't the silence, it's the fact that they don't even realize how loud it feels. You're not alone. So many older parents carry this ache, quietly, respectfully, because they don't want to be a burden, because they're told you should be proud they're independent. But pride doesn't fill the space where love used to land. And when your own children, the ones you gave your life to, ignore you, dismiss you, or speak with less warmth than a stranger, it hurts. But you don't have to fight. You don't have to beg. You can stay calm and still take your power back. In this video, we'll talk about why some children grow distant and why it's not always your fault, what silence from your adult child really means, why anger won't bring them closer and what will, and how to protect your peace, preserve your dignity, and move forward with quiet strength, because your worth is not measured by their attention. It is measured by your heart, your grace, and how you choose to respond, even when they don't. Part 1. Why children may become distant, and why it's not always your fault when your child stops calling, when they rush through conversations, when they visit only out of obligation, not love. It's easy, almost automatic, to blame yourself. Did I do something wrong? Was I too strict, too soft? Am I just no longer needed? But here's a quiet truth that few parents hear out loud. Their distance may not be about you at all. Let's look deeper, not to excuse cold behavior, but to understand it so we don't carry pain that isn't ours. 1. They are overwhelmed, not unloving. Many adult children are silently drowning in jobs that demand too much, debt they don't talk about, mental health struggles they hide, marriages that feel distant, or simply the weight of a world that moves too fast. When people feel emotionally drained, they often pull back, not because they don't love, but because they no longer know how to love consistently. You may still live in the same house in their mind, but in their calendar, you've become a box they want to check, but don't know where to fit. 2. They assume you'll always be there. You were their constant, their anchor, the one who always picked up, always forgave, always made time. And sometimes people take for granted what feels unshakable. They assume you'll always be waiting, that you'll always understand, that your love doesn't need nurturing because it's always been there. But love, even unconditional love, needs presence. 3. They carry unspoken hurts or misunderstandings. In some cases, distance is born from pain, even pain you never meant to cause. Maybe they misinterpreted something from years ago. Maybe they carry wounds from childhood that they never had the words to speak about. Maybe therapy opened memories that now feel sharper than they should. And instead of talking, they run. They withdraw. They stay silent, not because you're guilty, but because they don't yet know how to be honest without hurting more. Whatever the reason for their distance, please know this. You are not less valuable just because someone is too distracted to see your worth right now. Their silence is not your failure. Their distance is not your punishment. It is simply the shape of a story that is still unfolding. And you, with your wisdom, your years, your steady heart, do not need to chase, fix, or prove yourself. You only need to stay calm and remember your worth is not negotiable. Part 2. How it feels to be ignored and why that feeling deserves to be acknowledged. There's a pain that doesn't show up in scans, a wound that doesn't bleed but aches quietly. It's the feeling of being ignored by your own child, the one whose first steps you cheered for, the one whose tears you wiped in the dark, the one you protected, sometimes even from yourself. And now, they barely answer your calls. They respond with one-word texts. They forget your birthday or remember too late. They talk more to strangers online than to the hands that once held them. And no one sees how much it hurts, because you don't cry, you don't complain, you just carry it. This pain is real, and you're not too sensitive. When people say, don't take it personally, they're busy. What they don't realize is you're not hurt by their schedule. You're hurt by being treated like you don't matter anymore. You're not asking for their time every day. You're asking to still feel like a parent, to feel respected, seen, honored for who you are, not just who you were. That's not weakness. That's human. You're allowed to feel disappointed, angry, lonely, betrayed, not because you want to guilt them, but because you are still a person with a heart, with memories, with needs. And when someone you loved with your whole being now treats you like a background character, it's okay to say, "This hurts me." Not out loud, maybe, but quietly, honestly, to yourself or to someone you trust. Feelings don't make you weak, they make you real. And in a world that sometimes forgets the value of its elders, your sadness is proof of your love, not a flaw in your strength. So don't bury the ache. Name it. Hold it with tenderness, then breathe, because your pain matters, and so do you. Part 3. What happens when you react with anger and why it usually backfires? When the pain becomes too much, when the silence stretches for days, when the disrespect feels like a slap that no one else sees. It's only human to want to lash out, to say, "I raised you better than this. I don't deserve this. You'll miss me when I'm gone." And in that moment, your voice shakes, not because you're weak, but because you've been holding back so much for so long. But here's a truth that's hard, but healing. Reacting in anger almost never brings your child closer. In fact, it often pushes them further away. Anger feels powerful, but leaves wounds behind. Yes, anger makes us feel like we're standing up for ourselves, but when it explodes, especially towards someone who's already distant, it can confirm their story that you're too emotional, give them an excuse to avoid contact even longer, turn the conversation into a power struggle, not a path to healing, leave you feeling guilty afterward, even if your pain was valid. And worst of all, it makes them hear your voice, but miss your heart. Why they might shut down even more. When you raise your voice or send that angry message or guilt them with, "After all I've done," they don't always hear your love. They hear, "You're never enough. You disappoint me. You owe me something." And instead of reflecting, they defend, they blame, they disappear. Not because they don't care, but because they don't know handle confrontation carries the weight of decades. You have every right to be upset. You have every right to speak your truth. But before anger becomes your voice, ask yourself, do I want to be heard or do I want to be right? Do I want to release this pain or pass it on? Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay grounded, to respond with calm strength, to stand firm in dignity, not explode in demand. Because your children may not remember every word you say, but they will remember how you made them feel when things were tense. Make that memory one of grace, even when grace is hard. Part 4. What you should do instead. 5 calm, powerful ways to reclaim your dignity and be heard. You don't need to shout. You don't need to cry. You don't need to beg to be seen or force someone to care, because real power, the kind that lasts, comes from quiet confidence and unwavering self-respect. Here are 5 things you can do when your children ignore you, speak to you with disrespect, or forget the heart that raised them. 1. Set boundaries without bitterness. You have the right to say, "I won't tolerate being spoken to that way. When you're ready to talk respectfully, I'll be here. I love you, but I won't chase you to prove it." Say it once, calmly, without emotion. Then step back and hold the boundary with grace. You are teaching them that your love is strong, but not unconditional to mistreatment. 2. Live fully without waiting. Don't wait by the phone. Don't plan your day around their schedule. Don't shrink your world because they've stepped out of it. Go for a walk, cook your favorite meal, read aloud, laugh with a neighbor, plant something, learn something. You are not just their parent. You are still a person with a pulse and a purpose. When they see you thriving, even quietly, they may begin to question the distance. 3. Write but don't send the letter. If your heart is heavy with unspoken words, write them down. Every one of them. Your pain, your pride, your disappointment, your memories. But don't send it right away. Sometimes the writing is for release, not response. Let your truth exist somewhere, even if it's never spoken out loud. 4. Speak with kindness. When they do reach out, when they finally call or visit, even briefly, don't use the moment to guilt them. Say, "It's so good to hear your voice. I'm glad you reached out. Let's just enjoy this time." Let them feel warmth. Let them feel safe. That doesn't mean forgetting. It means being bigger than the bitterness. Kindness doesn't make you weak, it makes you unforgettable. 5. Reclaim the power of your presence. You don't have to chase, prove, or perform. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply remain calm, clear, dignified. Let your children come to understand, even if slowly. My parent didn't stop loving me, but they stopped accepting disrespect, and they became someone I admire again. You may not be able to change your child's behavior, but you can always choose how you respond. And when that response comes from calm, from clarity, and from quiet strength, you don't just reclaim your dignity, you remind them who you are. Part 5: How to find peace within, even when your children stay silent. There may come a time when the phone doesn't ring, the door doesn't open, and no apology comes. And in that silence, you have two choices: carry the ache or create the calm. Because even if your children stay distant, you do not have to stay wounded. 1. Create a life that's bigger than waiting. Your life is not on pause until someone remembers you. It's still moving, still breathing, still meaningful. Take walks in nature, brew tea slowly, read books you've always meant to, tend a plant, or your breath, or your prayers. Let every day contain something that is only for you, because healing doesn't come from them, it comes from within. 2. Surround yourself with people who see you. Your children are important, but they are not the only ones who can love you. Join a senior group and call an old friend, talk to a neighbor, volunteer, share wisdom, give kindness. Being seen doesn't require biology, it only requires presence. Let love find you through other doors, ones you didn't expect, but deeply deserve. 3. Remember who you were and still are. You were once strong enough to raise a family, brave enough to survive heartbreak, quiet enough to carry pain others never saw, kind enough to love anyway. That version of you still lives inside. They are not gone, only waiting to be honored again by you. 4. Practice stillness, not emptiness. Being alone does not mean being unloved. Sometimes it means being unburdened. Sometimes it means you finally have space to feel and heal. Try this. Sit in silence for 5 minutes each morning. Breathe slowly. Say to yourself, I am still here. I am still enough. I do not need to be remembered to be valuable. You don't have to harden. You don't have to forget. But you also don't have to suffer endlessly for someone else's silence. You can love from a distance. You can forgive without permission. You can outgrow the pain, not by pretending it didn't happen, but by choosing to rise anyway. You are not just someone's parent. You are someone's light. And that light, no matter who walks away, can still warm your own life. Your children may forget to call. They may not see what you've given. They may be too distracted, too hurt, or too lost to treat you the way you deserve. But you do not have to become bitter. You do not have to beg. You do not have to break. Because dignity doesn't come from being honored. It comes from how you choose to stand, even in the quiet. You can still be kind. You can still love without sacrificing your peace. You can still walk forward, not angry, not wounded, but whole. Your value is not decided by your children. It is held by your years, your heart, your wisdom, and nothing they forget can take that from you. If this video gave you peace, strength, or a moment of healing, please like this video. It helps other seniors find this message too. Subscribe to True Senior Wisdom for weekly encouragement, emotional support, and honest reflections for every season of aging. In the comments, share what has helped you find peace when your children grew distant. What would you say to another elder feeling forgotten today? Because sometimes the children we raise grow silent, but the community we choose reminds us we still matter, and you do, always.